And we're back. It's Radio Days Europe in Athens, live. It's Tom Watts for Radio Express, and we have another guest for you. Really excited about this one. Peter from Audata.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tom. Great to be here.
How are you finding Radio Days Europe in Athens?
Fantastic. It's the best one ever.
Best one ever?
Best one ever.
Shortest commute for you ever,
Shortest commute ever as well, being based here in Greece.
The weather has turned up for us. What about
Really
the
good.
sessions? Have you been to many so far? What's been your favourite highlights?
I know that the Jackie O session was a good one yesterday. I missed that, unfortunately, because we've got an incredible booth, the Audata booth. But I was really impressed with this morning's opening keynote speech, which was great. I think in general, people seem very optimistic about radio, despite the fact there are challenges, as there have always been. It's just that they're new challenges, so that makes it a bit more interesting, I guess.
Yeah, we'll get to that for sure. Tell us a bit about what Audata does, because it's something new to me and something that maybe our viewers might not have known before, because it's one of those sorts of systems, I guess, that a listener to a radio station wouldn't know about, but it's integral to the running of a radio station, right?
Absolutely. So, usually when you interact with your audience, you do it on a number of levels. You incentivize them in some capacity to keep listening to your radio station, so you do competitions. And with those competitions, you want to give away all these great prizes. So Audata has a program, a cloud-based program that can be accessed anywhere, on any browser, on any device, where it's called Promo, and allows you to give away those prizes, communicate with your listener. The listener simply receives a text. You don't have to write down the telephone number and their details, and then lose the piece of paper and all that sort of stuff. You just simply send them they give you their mobile number, send them a text, they fill out all the details, and then the system communicates with them, lets them know when the prize is ready to be picked up.
It's seamless.
You might want to post it to them, for example, all this sort of stuff. So, and it's all branded, and the whole user experience is incredible. So from the listener's perspective, they feel like they're engaged with you on throughout the whole process.
I remember when I've been in radio for 10, maybe 12 years, and I remember when I was first starting out interning on a breakfast show, it was one of my responsibilities to call the winner back, take down their details. Then GDPR rules, certainly in the UK, sort of like data protection rules came in. It was like, no, you very much can't do that these days. So step forward a brilliant system like Audata,
absolutely, right? Which is also, by the way, GDPR compliant. And we've got clients in Greece and also in the Middle East and in Europe, and we're very excited to sort of expand more so into the Europe area. There's also a number of other features that we work on. There's another great, if you don't mind me mentioning, by the way.
Go for it, please.
There's another platform called Connect.
Okay.
Which is a cloud-based telephony system that requires no hardware. So no putting these big boxes in the rack room anymore. You can just simply engage with your audience, tell them your current telephone number, your radio station. They call through. It's up on the screen. All their details are there because they've already perhaps potentially integrated or connected with you using the Promo software in the past. So you know who's calling you, you know what they've won. There's all this great... The listener is most likely a fan, but they feel even more important when they know that you know things about them already. So it's a great experience for them.
And I guess if you've already got clients that are using one of the systems, it's easy enough for them to add different elements of the products together. I'm intrigued as to how you ended up in Audata, because I know that you've worked in radio for a little while.
Yes.
And you've worked in so many different kind of roles and. Take us through that journey.
So when I came across Audata, I'd say about 10 years ago, initially in Australia, when I was a state content director for New South Wales, which was responsible for 6 radio stations, 13 breakfast shows. Anyway, I was based
13. I feel like looking after one breakfast show would be enough of a headache for.
Thankfully, I had a great team.
Some people. Okay, fine, right.
A lot of great people on the ground, and we were introduced to Audata at the time because we found that it was a way that would allow us to not only help us with the logistical aspects of prize management, but also to learn about our audience, because we get their email, they send us their telephone number, their age, their gender, roughly where they live. Well, in fact, exactly where they live because we need to, send the prize out.
Dispatch the prize.
And allows us to basically get all this information about them where they, on a heat map. So it allows us from that perspective to not only engage with our audience, but to learn about our audience. So from there, I became a big fan, and the opportunity came up to join the guys recently, and I took the opportunity, and I'm very, very happy there.
It's something I find really interesting about the development of radio, and maybe since I've worked in it the last 10, 12 years, how data-driven it has become with the technological advances, right? Like data, it feels like is everything. The more we know about our audience, the more we know about our listeners, we can cater advertising if we're in the private sector. Data is really everything, isn't it, these days? Talk to me about how the industry has developed in the time that you've worked in it to the point we are now.
Well, there's two aspects of it. Obviously, data of your audience obviously helps you create great content for them, so they listen to you longer. But also, data is really important for your clients, so they know beyond the normal survey results and etc. So they know who's really listening to you. So you can basically let them know what type of fans are listening to your radio stations, who your P1s are, so to speak. So that information is valuable, and as a radio station that has that information, a client looks at you and says, "Hey, I want to advertise with you because you guys know what you're doing." So having that as a tool throughout the years has always been an important thing. It used to be really, really expensive. Obviously, with the digital revolution that we've had, and even now with AI, it's becoming even more important because what we can get is down to the fine, the minutiae of data, and really go very narrow to allow us to do things like create extra shows like podcasts. So there might be, we might discover, your radio station may discover that you have an abnormally high BMW fans. So you think, well, what do we do with these guys besides go to BMW and try and get them to advertise with us? Well, you can go to BMW and get them to advertise with you as well as advertise your podcast about the BMW vehicle. So you can create these shows. And that's the great thing about radio.
So many new opportunities, right? Like, I think there's a lot of fear about AI, and it's sort of the fear of the unknown, I guess. But actually it's about how we can, I was going to say weaponize it, but make it work for us rather than it take over from us. Like, I think there's the two different ways of looking at it, right? It's an opportunity rather than a fear-mongering sort of thing.
I think so too. I think with any major technology that's come along over the years, it actually creates more jobs because we learn how to create more from it. We become more productive, and when you become more productive, you need more people to help you maintain that productivity. Old jobs may sort of fall by the wayside, but new ones are created. So I've never had a fear for that. And I'm also even more confident that radio will grow out of this as well. Radio's great at efficiencies, don't get me wrong, and I know there are challenges now. But think of how many people have been hired to do podcasting over the last few years that were in radio. So I kind of equate that with AI to be similar to that, where it will broaden out new roles, create new roles in radio or podcasting or streaming or whatnot.
Look, we're asking everyone that we're talking to here at Radio Days Europe a couple of questions to finish off these conversations. Firstly, what are you most excited about in the general radio landscape at the moment? Is there one thing that you could sort of hone in on for what's getting you excited the most?
I think the AI side is obviously everyone. I'm assuming everyone said the same thing, right? I think the AI side is interesting because it's a tool right now, and I think if you know how to use it correctly, it's going to allow you to write great commercials, to write great promos. If you have a creative block. Radio is a very creative industry, so there may be days where you think, I need to come up with a competition for this client. I'll throw some words into ChatGPT, see what comes out. Yeah. And it will spark your thought process, and there's nothing wrong with that. The originality comes from you, but that little help comes from AI. So I think that's what excites me about it, about radio.
And on the flip side, what are you most frightened or wary of in the radio industry at the moment?
Look, I think
same thing. Is it AI in different ways or not?
No, not really at all. I have no fear of AI, and I say this because really briefly, if I can just make a side note.
Please.
I remember my boss talking to me years ago when the iPods were coming out, and he said, "Well, what do you think? Is this going to hurt radio?" And I said, no, I think radio will run in parallel with this. I think the iPods are really an extension of your CD collection. And I think I was right. And I think the same thing happens with any other fear, like AI, definitely, I think it's going to be extensions and be a great tool. The only concerns that I have at the moment for radio is, I think there's the thirst to be super efficient. And what I mean by super efficient is, obviously letting people go and cutting off shows, and I think there's been a lot of redundancies, especially in my home country of Australia, recently, and it's been happening for many years. But radio seems to, evolve, and there's nothing wrong with that. I understand that you need to have efficiencies, it seems to, and that's fine. But I think as long as the creative process is maintained, and we invest in ourselves, and that's one thing that radio. That's, I guess, what my point is. Radio needs to invest in itself to continue to grow.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily financially investing. It's people having the space and the resources to
absolutely
stretch their creativity, right? And
absolutely
come up with those new ideas.
Cut a bit of the fat. Don't cut too much meat, and be careful you don't get close to the bone. That's the kind of theory.
Yeah.
So long as you keep filling up the tank with a bit of fuel, radio will still keep going, I think.
Amazing. Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Tom, real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Make sure you stay tuned to the live stream for more fascinating conversations. And we'll catch you soon at Radio Days Europe here in Athens.